Father Simon and the amusingly inconsistent collective. Nicely spotted. A recent three-word texter to the show reminded me of this until now untold confession, recounting the consequences of nativity plays, an unforgivable breach of childhood trust, and the actions of a man pushed to and beyond the edge. Those three words for your three-worder were nativity play disaster. And back in 2007, I was already a weary veteran of the primary school nativity play. You know the sort of thing, 100 small confused kids milling around in hastily painted cardboard outfits, scenery moving like an early series of Crossroads, and sufficient moral messages for even a reasonable man to be surreptitiously reaching for the hip flask. My luck was to be imperfectly placed somewhere close to the front, as befitting the husband of a school governor, where I could hear desperately excited children belting out classic nativity numbers with little interest in what the actual words might be, or even the tune. Kids of that age can't really carry a tune, but they can certainly take it outside and give it a good kicking. An impression may be forming that the annual pilgrimage to a damp village hall for an hour of forced bonhomie, with absolutely no prospect of a free bar, was not my favourite thing, and you'd be right. But at least some of this was instigated by the perennial spectacle of our next-door neighbour's daughter giving it the full Celine, as my wife accurately called it. This precocious child divaed all over the stage all of the time, taking all of the best parts, sometimes at the same time. Some context here. Lovely as our neighbours were, they were the wiki citation of pushy parents. Their two offspring really had to be the best of everything. You may also detect the slightest note of bitterness here as well. Not really, but it did get a bit wearing, especially as the school mafia, and anyone who's been involved with the PTA and Governor's Circle of Truth will know exactly what I'm talking about, was run with an iron hand by Lottie's mum. And strangely, her daughter would always get the choicest parts with the greatest stage time.
Controversial.
It is very controversial already. Let me tell you, it's the only nativity play that involved one participant getting about 9 costume changes and having her own changing room. Not our kids, though. They were generally and cruelly typecast with the minor parts. One of those parts being the back end of the Christmas donkey. The other one was generally some largely forgotten mouse or monkey whose sole role appeared to be falling off the stage. So here we are at Christmas 2007. I arrive, rafishly late, to find Lottie's dad filming the director's cut from a tripod-based camera mounted in the main aisle, and her mum backstage managing the costume changes and keeping the ugly kids out of shot. I apologised my way to a seat next...
Keeping the ugly kids out of shot.
Yes.
Well done.
Well, I've all met parents like this. I apologised my way to a seat next to my wife, dumping myself into a too small chair and wondering out loud if anyone knew how the play ended. Sharp and entirely deserved dig in the ribs from the missus hardly dulled the pain of young Lottie striking a statuesque pose stage front and murdering the opening lines to Away in a Manger. Then I heard a sound, possibly the sound of one of my children falling off the stage, signalling the crux of our little movie. Kings had been heard, wise men followed stars, indoors knocked at, fingers pointing at outside sheds, and a wobbly crib pushed unsteadily onto the stage. On came Lottie, dressed as the kind of angel that may have fallen into a bowl of chocolate, all bright-eyed and significantly trailed. You see, this wasn't the first time I'd been privileged to witness the final scene. Last time round, the neighbours, Lottie needed almost no encouragement to robustly recite the lines introducing the cribbed child to the masses. She looked thrilled when I complimented her on a perfect performance, and she clearly thought of me as a friend. A mistake, as it would turn out. So I knew exactly what was coming as she sucked big air into her lungs, and with a look of genuine joy, even I had by this time warmed to the whole thing and was especially looking forward to what was coming next, began reciting her lines. Behold, she grabbed swaddling wrapped doll from the crib, behold the bringer of light, the ruler of the world, God's son on earth, behold. And then nothing. Just a little kid in the lights with stage fright having forgotten her lines, or one line, or in this case, one word. But quite an important one. She was one Jesus from getting it done, but instead just stared at a couple of 100 parents with a frightened O of her mouth. She'd forgotten the name of the baby Jesus. She desperately searched for a friendly face. Mum backstage, probably on the phone to her agent. Dad, method acting the cinematographer in the aisle some way back in the dark. She was lost. The silence stretched. The audience waited. And then she finally located that friendly face, so desperately needed at this time of crisis. Good old Mark. The very man who complimented her so effusively only a few days ago. She beseeched me with a look of trust and need, and I may have nodded slightly in reply. Reinvigorated now, she backstepped a half-line and bellowed, "Behold!" Then looked at me, confident that I'd give her the word. I gave her a word, all right. I whispered, "Bawaiian."
I thought it
Well, she didn't whisper it. "Bawaiian!" Rang round the hall like bells ringing out on Christmas Day, as did the laughter echoing back from most of the parents. Her face crumpled. Through confusion to horror as the laughter rose to a raucous crescendo. Careful use of the word most back there. At least 3 people didn't seem terribly amused. 2 were her parents, now consoling her with heartfelt messages of support and sticky chocolate, and my wife, who I dared not look at, but I knew she was looking at me. I do have a bit of a history of looking for a cheap laugh without considering the consequences, so was pretty much the prime suspect, even if she hadn't actually witnessed my misdemeanour. Obviously, I admitted nothing. I've absolutely no idea why Laura didn't grass me up, but she never did. So I don't ask forgiveness of the parents who frankly learned an important lesson about the line between pushiness and pretension, nor from the other kids who for weeks afterwards would run around the playground reenacting the final scene and screeching, "Bawaiian!" Or from my wife, to whom I've had to apologise so many times for my inappropriate behaviour. A public apology would offer nothing new. But I obviously have to ask forgiveness from Lottie, who deserves something better in her time of great need than a man looking for a cheap laugh and some natural justice. I can only hope the next man she chooses is far more trustworthy and morally upstanding than me. Well, you don't want to have someone like Mark to trust on. You're looking out there, you want someone just to tell you the word that you're looking for, and it's not Bawaiian.
That is a brilliant confession. That was one of the funniest ones we've ever had. Beautifully written, just hysterical.
I took out about
Beautifully read, of course.
Yes,
And
thank you.
beautifully read as
I did.
well.
I took out about 7 pages, I have to tell you.
The thing is, I mean, Mark, I think he's telling himself it was meant to be a joke, but actually, what was he motivated by? Jealousy.
Yes.
And it's not a very pretty
And
trait,
revenge.
is it? And revenge. And he's an adult, Lottie's a child. I mean, OK, Lottie's chosen for all the best parts, but it's not her fault, it's her parents' fault for being very pushy. So I think...
Yeah, wrong target, wasn't it? It's the
Wrong target,
yeah.
exactly. So I think Lottie suffered needlessly, and I'm not forgiving you.
OK, I think that's an interesting answer. Let's see what Novice Nigel makes of that.
Well, gosh, I've been vacillating there. But I think that in 25 years she'll have a comeback and do that very scene again, and will do brilliantly as well. And there is an old adage that you must die quite a few times on stage to succeed as an actor. And on that basis...
Say that as if you know.
Well...
It is, but having said that, it's a bit rum to forget the name of Jesus in the nativity play, isn't it?
She was nervous.
Yeah. You mean it doesn't change every year? OK, right. So... Jesus... Anyway, so on that basis, I think, Mark, you're not forgiven because you were nasty.
Yes. Well, Brother Matthew.
Do you know why this is such a great confession? Apart from the fact that I absolutely identify with Mark and his feelings on being at these plays, is that we're not laughing at Lottie, stroke Laura, stroke whatever. We're not laughing at the girl because... we're laughing with her because actually she got a great response from the crowd and they all loved it, and they're going to talk about that performance for years to come, and she's going to bask in that. So I really, the person that we should be directing our ire at is those parents. Who needs costume changes in a nativity? They're all wearing the same thing. I've never heard of a nativity where people have to change costumes halfway through.
9 costume changes.
Absolute disgrace. So for that, obviously we're going to forgive, but it is a